everyone, it's Christina with Landscape Management Magazine, and I'm here today with Andrew Bray, Vice President of Government Relations for the National Association of Landscape Professionals, to give us an update on the California small engine ban. All right, thanks for joining us, Andrew.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be able to talk to you again about some of the ongoing issues in California and throughout the nation with regards to the gas to electric transition.
Yeah, so why don't you share with me and with our readers kind of where we are with everything?
Sure. So, we'll do a quick little timeline. This all started, to be honest with you, several years ago, but we began getting a little more engaged within the last 12 months when the California Air Resource Board proposed ending the sale, and I want to make sure it's always important, the sale of gas-powered virtually almost all landscape equipment. There's a couple of niche carve-outs here and there, but almost everything that our industry uses, if it's not zero emission equipment, then it can't be sold in California past the year 2024. So that proposal got put forward. Then there was legislation that accompanied and bolstered it. That passed. We tried to lobby for that to have a kind of carve out for commercial. Governor signed that into law in October, but there was still this last phase. Well, there's still even one more past this one, but there was still one more box for California to check before they could move forward with the final phase. And that was for the California Air Resource Board had to actually vote on it with their board of directors. And there's 19 directors. It's a very large board. And last Thursday, they voted unanimously to approve the proposal that would ban the sale by 2024. The one thing of note is they did amend the proposal, and they're requesting that a specific industry stakeholder group be formed to be able to inform the CAR board of directors this time next year if they think it will be feasible to move forward, especially concerning some of the supply chain issues. And obviously, many of the concerns we raised about the equipment not quite being there yet and being kind of cost prohibitive. We're going to have a chance to try to communicate with them next year if we're still dealing with a lot of hurdles. But for right now, California is kind of moving forward with this next phase in implementation.
Well, that sounds kind of promising, right? I mean, that wasn't something I thought I had heard of before. So, that gives the industry an excellent opportunity to voice their concerns.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a double-edged sword, Christina. We really want to embrace this transition, and we were telling them that all along. I think what's frustrating for us is I always believe that smart policies are based in the foundation of having industry stakeholder input on the outset, or the onset, I'm sorry. And we don't believe that occurred as much as I think it could have. And now that they want to talk with us, that's great. And I'm really grateful that they're going to take our input. But it would have been nice if they would have accepted this input 12 months ago, and we could have gotten to a proposal that everybody could have gotten on board on, embraced immediately. And I think it would have eased the transition. But I still remain optimistic that this is an inevitable transition that's coming for our industry. And if California is going to be the test balloon that we learn what works and doesn't, I think that's going to be important for us as the National Association to be able to help other landscape members within certain communities in certain states probably have something coming down the pipeline in the not so distant future.
Yeah, well, why don't we talk about that? So we know where we are now, and where are things going in the future, and what do we need to know about all of that that's coming?
Sure. So there's an interesting, the Clean Air Act is essentially the federal statute that controls the regulation of emissions, and the Clean Air Act preempts all 50 states from regulating based on emissions. And this comes under the notion of if you're a car manufacturer or the person that's manufacturing this equipment, it would be impossible to comply with different regulations based on different emissions in hundreds of different jurisdictions. So that's when the federal government gets together and they come up with a federal regulatory scheme to ensure that we have a certainty to be able to operate in this space. It's almost more for the manufacturers, but in the end, it's also very helpful for the end user, like the landscape industry. But California has very unique pressures with their climate. Specifically, this was told to me by somebody at the EPA. They basically have such a problem in Los Angeles with smog, and a lot of it is actually based on the geography. It's kind of like a bowl. It's not so much that they have plenty of people. There's a lot of people in LA, obviously, but it's more actually just the geography there that causes really bad air quality. And because of this, when Congress last updated or amended the Clean Air Act in the 70s, they gave a carve out for California to be able to apply for what is called a waiver. And under that waiver, it means they can regulate emissions. Okay. And so California, even though they passed this, they still have to go through a process, which is, I've been told, it could take anywhere from 6 to 18 months with the EPA to apply for this waiver. During that process, it will be open to public comment. We'll have an opportunity to comment again with EPA on this waiver. And we've already talked with EPA about it. And like I said, we want to be supportive of this transition. So we're kind of still determining the best approach to take with EPA. We just want to make sure EPA understands that we probably need some additional funding. We would love to have a little more time for the commercial industry to adapt, but that's neither here nor there. The important part for other states to understand is no other state has the ability to apply for a waiver. And no other state has an ability to even apply for the same waiver as California if it's a small enough engine, which these engines are. That doesn't mean that there aren't abilities to try to change statutes. That's what we do on Capitol Hill. But as of right now, I don't believe any state should feel like it's coming imminently. That being said, we see the proliferation of, say, a leaf blower ban. And I think this is an important distinction to make. A leaf blower ban can happen if they're not regulating emissions, they're just regulating based on noise, which is typically what happens, right? That is not within the jurisdiction of the Clean Air Act, right? So I want people to understand that distinction, but if you were in some sort of jurisdiction and you are hearing they're proposing banning the use of gas-powered landscape equipment, please email me. I would like to know about it. We can't track every local one. We're always tracking at the state level because there's a good likelihood that what they're proposing is illegal.
I think this leads into a great question, which is how can we as an industry help? I heard some hints in there, but what else can we do?
Yeah, I think first of all, being engaged and being hyper vigilant, right? I always tell everybody that politics is local. I think you've heard me say that before, Christina. Get engaged in your local community. Serve on a planning commission. I mean, we work in the landscape industry. There's always a spot for us at almost any sort of local government, right? And then that way you can kind of understand what's happening before it gets too far down the road. That's always what happens. Once these things get moving and get momentum, they can be really hard to stop. But what I think is important is, as we are still kind of refining our message and figuring out the best way to move forward, is don't approach this as no way we can't do this, because that doesn't do the industry any good, right? I think we need to approach this. Let's look at this. Let's figure out a responsible manner to do this. And let's figure out ways that doesn't hurt these small businesses and these landscape companies, not to mention the customers that they're servicing. So I just think that would be my advice right now, is to be vigilant, get involved. Christine, you can share my email. It's andrew@landscapeprofessionals.org. We want to know, we want to help. Since this California has taught us a lot, we've developed a lot of materials I think that I could get into your hands to try to help you articulate these points in a very refined way.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for talking to us. I know there's a lot of updates and there's a lot to keep us posted on, but I appreciate you just kind of sharing what you know right now and where things are going.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. We want to try to get this information out to our members, and this is a great avenue. Hopefully this is probably the last time we'll talk in 2021, but I'm looking forward to talking to you for what is second to be a very busy 2022.
Yes, thank you, and have a happy holiday.